Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Hart in New York show, part two, okay, of the show I will label as called Being Dad. Doug has an interesting background, and he was called from Montana to California. He went to seminary. From seminary, he went to New York City. What is he doing out here in New York City, coming originally from Montana? And he became a youth minister, right, Doug?
Yes.
In Brooklyn, in a church on 59th Street in Brooklyn. And then what happens after that was he's ministering on the weekly meetings you had with the youth group.
Yes, it's the
Okay,
church.
and you can imagine they're all blonde hair, blue eyes, mostly all Norwegian, Scandinavian. And then all of a sudden the door busts open, and we're going to have pictures up on the screen for you to see of gang members that come walking in, correct?
Yes.
So he starts ministering the gang members. Let me have one of them that came to you. His name is Tony Rodriguez. Okay, Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And what you're going to hear from Tony is right from his mouth how he was when he met Doug, who he calls Dad now, okay, and how his life is now, and how his life has been transformed by the love and forgiveness of Jesus Christ that has gone in this guy. So, Tony,
Yes.
how did it start?
So by the time I'm 14, I already was in the streets. My whole entire adult family were on drugs. So I was pretty much just doing whatever I want, because even though they did try to take care of us, they were hooked on the drug that took more of their attention than from me and my family. So I did whatever I wanted. I was in the streets most of the time. I didn't go too much school. By the time I got to him, I was already robbing people in the streets. I was not going to school. I dropped out, pretty much.
Did you carry a weapon?
At that time, it was more one person held on to something.
Right.
And so there was times I would hold on to something. Another time would be another friend of mine that would hold it.
Okay.
So there was times that I was the holder, in a sense.
Okay, that you're like in a gang, one of these guys.
So by the time I got to him,
Right.
It wasn't a gang, it was just a group. You know, we all had our little groups. And I came to Dad because my mother went to prison. And I didn't have anywhere to go. I was trying to figure out, should I go this way, should I go that way?
How'd you find him?
So what I did is, the only school when I was young, I graduated elementary school, which is 6th grade.
Right.
That was the last grade I graduated. And I went to that guidance counselor, and I said, listen, I'm lost. My mother's in prison. My family is hooked on drugs. I don't know where to go. She told me that this man named Reverend Doug. And she took me to him. And at one time we met. We connected. I came a couple times to visit Dad, who I considered my dad. This is basically my dad, because my biological dad left when I was young, when I was like 1 year old. And a couple meetings throughout our time. He had a room in the building, the discipleship building, that it had grouped about, 14, 15?
Yeah, 12.
12 guys, 12 rooms. Dad was living there, and he was helping young boys, young men, to get off the streets and to change our lives. So I did that. I came in, I took his offer, and I left the streets. Though at that time I was confused because I really wanted to be out there, but he was showing me something different, and he told me about God. This is where I learned about God and learned about Jesus Christ. And I still living in this house about a year and a half, kicking and screaming, of course.
What do you mean by kicking and screaming? Like
Kicking and screaming, more like everything that he was trying to install in me.
so
was
he had rules.
absolutely
What were those rules?
rules. We have to get up on time. We got to get up at a certain time.
Right.
We have to go to school or work. We had to clean. We had chores.
Okay.
We had to, if we step out the house, we have to be back by a certain time, or Dad locks the door.
Right.
And so we have to try to,
Have you ever done that, Doug? Lock
Oh,
the door?
yeah, yes.
Really?
Plenty of
So
times,
what are they
yes.
sleeping on the
Yeah.
steps, or are they?
Well, we had a typical door lock where everybody had a key.
Right.
We had a double lock,
Uh-huh.
and curfew was 11:30.
Right.
At 11:30, the double lock went down, so they had to ring my bell to get back in, and that was humiliating the best. But
Okay. So you're there, and there's rules, and of course there's no drugs and no
drugs.
and no booze.
No booze.
Okay.
Changing our lives. Yeah.
Changing your lives, and you're kicking and screaming and saying, "Well, wait a minute, I'm not used to this. I'd like to do what I want when I want to do. Thank you very much for the bed."
Right.
And
Absolutely, yeah.
a little bit of rebellion, which is understandable. But then did you like have weekly Bible studies, or how did you
church
start
was church was required, Bible study was required, and by that time we had house parents.
What's a house parent?
They were Sarah and Steve Jorgensen who came in, and they actually ran the house at that point, cooking and doing a lot of the daily things to keep the house running smoothly.
Okay.
Because I was out most of the time
Where were you?
on the street.
You were on the street, still talking to the. Where would you go?
Like a fire engine, wherever there's a flame.
Whenever there's a flame. I mean, everybody, most of the people have seen the movie The Cross and the Switchblade with Nicky Cruz. Did you ever meet him? So you
Yes.
know Nicky Cruz. So were you like do you help people like Nicky Cruz?
And the similar.
Similar.
Yes. Like I got to put this in there. At one point, I had put more people into Teen Challenge than any other individual.
Now, Teen Challenge has to.
Dave
That-
Wilkerson's program.
That's Dave Wilkerson
Right.
started Times Square Church, and that's where Nicky Cruz was affiliated. Is affiliated with.
Right.
Isn't that something?
That's when Don was running it.
That's when Don was still, and he's still alive, Don Wilkerson, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, he's still around. So you've been going to, now you're in there, kicking and horning, but then all of a sudden you're going to the Bible study, which is how many times a week?
Once a week.
And how about
Church was
service?
required.
And that's once a week.
Right.
Okay, and then what about the other days, if they're living there?
Well, there's a number of things going on in the house adult. We had a school in the basement.
Okay,
We had a drug program upstairs. It
so
was
you had that all right there.
in the same
Okay.
location.
Oh, so it was like there was never a dull moment.
No, we prayed for boredom.
Okay, so what happens now? You're going.
So I'm there, learning
Right.
how to change my life, how to be better, how to be a man. Even though I was a young boy at that time, but I was learning to that there's something different out there, that there's real love, I guess you call it.
Right.
That I didn't really know. I think most of us didn't know. We didn't know how to accept love. And when he was giving us this love, giving it to me, giving it to others, the kicking and screaming is like, what is he doing? He's trying to love me. He's trying to be my dad, trying to show me something different, and I couldn't deal with it. So I was pushing, he was pulling, pushing, kicking, pulling me in. Bible studies, church was helping me try to understand Jesus Christ, understand that, again, there is real love. There is a God out there that wants us to do better. So he installed that in me.
Right.
Me living in this house, I lived there. I wind up. He put me in school, by the way. So by the time I'm in this house, I'm about 14, 15 years old. 14 years old. I graduated elementary school, which is 6th grade, but then I didn't go back. So I actually went to 7th grade for like 2 months, and I just dropped out.
Right.
And when I came to the house, I had to go to school. By the time at that age, I couldn't go to junior high school because I already passed that age. So they put me straight into high school. So I missed my whole junior high school years. So he puts me in. I'm in high school now. I missed my whole junior high school years. Don't know what to do. I'm lost. But of course, you know, every time I came home, I felt good to be home. Going to school it was weird. It was crazy. And so in the high school, I couldn't take it for like 3 months or 4 months. I was in high school, and I just couldn't take it. I felt different. So they had a GED program in the school. We had a GED program for discipleship as well.
Right.
But while I was in high school, I joined the GED program there, and I started. As I was coming home, I told Dad I couldn't do the high school. So I went to GED program, and I was going to the GED program in discipleship as well. So I'm doing both.
So you're starting to experience caring like you've never felt before.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
and that's like all new territory to you. To have someone really care for you. Have you, like, threw in the towel and said, "I don't want this. I'm out of here." Were there any like that?
Well, I did get to that point.
You got to the point.
So
you wanted to say, "Hey, that's it, man.
Well,
I want."
I actually did. So I wind up with God's help, with Dad's help, with discipleship help.
Right.
I wound up getting my GED. My first try, I couldn't believe it. After all these years not going to school, I get it. And soon after it, the streets were still calling me. Though God was there, Dad was there, I just couldn't take it. So I wound up leaving the house after about a year and a half or so. And now I went back to the streets. I got my GED, but I'm back in the streets.
Right.
So this is where I know there's a real God, you know, Jesus Christ is there, because I'm out there. Now I really get into now I'm a little smarter, I think.
But you're back with the gang. We're not going to
now-
mention names, so the name of the gang, but you're back in the gang.
So so when I was younger, it was a group.
Right.
When I got back to the streets, I got into a gang now. Now I got into this big gang back. I idolized them
Why?
because this is all I saw.
That's
this is
you,
all
right.
I knew.
Uh-huh.
You know, and they were like my gods in a sense.
Right.
You know, these guys, wow, they just do whatever they want. They take whatever they want.
If they wanted money, they get it.
Yeah,
They'd steal it
yeah.
or whatever.
And I had family that were in these gangs that are older than me, and that's all I knew.
Okay.
So I went back.
So that was the attraction.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's
absolutely.
where say, hey, come on in, have a drink or a drug or whatever, and whatever the case may
Yes.
be, and you felt like that was your,
Yes.
you felt, okay,
Absolutely.
so now, what happened?
So then now I'm in these gangs.
You're back. This is after you
So
got
now-
a dose of Dad.
Yep.
All right.
Now I got a dose of Dad.
And you're back out. So Dad already, whether you knew it then, he
Yes.
already planted the seed.
Yes.
Now you're back out there in the gang. Okay,
Yeah,
what next?
Absolutely. So now I'm out there, and now I start selling drugs. Now I start robbing people. Now I am doing things that I never thought I would do. So I did things that I pray God forgive me. You know, I was in the trains. I mean, I used to hang on back of the train. I used to go on top of the trains.
No kidding.
Yeah, with this train board. I used to do all those things. I used to walk in the tracks, writing my name everywhere.
Uh-huh. So
uh,
you were one of them.
Oh yeah. I
All
wound
right.
up becoming
You were that.
these people that were older than me. I wound up being the next generation of those gangs.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
happened next?
Yeah. So then, a couple of years I was doing that, and I wound up getting arrested throughout this time.
Okay.
And I wind up getting arrested so many times that there was one point where I had to, I made a change because that last arrest really got to me. And as soon as I came out of that, I wind up, now throughout this time, God was always calling me. I always pray to God. I always,
You were still praying to God.
Yeah, I still was.
Oh, I just robbed this person over
Absolutely.
here. Lord,
I
I'm
asked
going to
for
pray to you.
forgiveness.
Like that, huh?
Absolutely.
You asked for
Absolutely.
forgiveness.
Yes, I did.
You see, you planted the seed, brother. Okay.
absolutely,
This is a perfect illustration on how God works. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And so I'm doing all these things, and again, I'm praying, and I always go back to thinking of the things that I was taught by Dad in discipleship. You know, I go back to those things, like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should go this way instead of going that way. But, of of course,
Right.
the easy money and that lifestyle, and you know, it was so much easier to do this.
Right.
But then again, that last arrest really changed me, and I wind up having a child. So now I have 2 children right now, but at that time I had one,
Okay.
a son, and
How old is he now?
right now he's 24,
Okay.
and I have a daughter that's about to be 21.
No kidding. Wow.
So yes, so I'm 44 right now.
Okay.
Now I have a son, and I'm trying to learn how to be a dad, but I couldn't because I was here.
Right.
But I was all over the place. I didn't know where I was lost. I was just kept being lost, and I was just going wherever life took me.
Okay.
You know.
But it's in the metropolitan. It's in New York
Yeah.
City.
So this is all Brooklyn.
This is all Brooklyn. Okay. Right out of Welcome
Yes.
Back, Carter.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. Back
all right.
then, yes, everything. All the craziness. Then I have my daughter. So now
Same woman?
I decided no, 2 different women.
Okay.
You know. By the way, I just want to say I love them both. Now, what happened is I wound up meeting the mother of my daughter. She was also she was religious. So we were the total opposite. She met a guy from the street. She's religious, and now we hooked up. We had a daughter out of that. I already had my son already.
What do you mean she was religious? She would
was,
go to
she
church?
Was she was a church-going woman, church-going girl.
Okay.
And, you know, she was always trying to also install, you know, calmness in me and love, and remember, you know, telling me about God and telling me how to go the right path. So anyway, with her, I wind up going with that GD that I got with Dad in discipleship.
Right.
I wind up going to college. So I went to college, and I don't know how I did it, but kicking and screaming. I remember I just got my GD. I missed high school. I missed junior high school. I went to college with her.
Are you keeping in touch with him in the meantime?
So we lost touch. We lost touch because I was ashamed.
Okay.
I was ashamed to go back and to talk to him. Once I left, I went the wrong way again.
Okay.
In a sense, you
All
know?
right.
So I was ashamed. So years and years went by.
Okay.
So now I'm going to school. I got my associate's degree. I said, you know what, I'm going to keep on going. I don't know how I did it, but I did. So in my last semester of my bachelor's, I wind up getting in touch with Dad again.
Okay. How many years now has
So
it
this
been?
is about, I don't know how long it's been. It was about 10, 12 years. We didn't talk. I was ashamed,
Wow.
and that's it.
You were ashamed. Okay.
You know?
All right.
So I never went back. But I always remembered things I was taught. I was still ashamed because I never fully, I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do. I thought in my eyes to be back in discipleship and with Dad, it was hard for me. Even though I always ask God for forgiveness, I always wonder if He will forgive me. And I know there was unconditional love for Him, but again, it was that crazy thinking that I had that didn't allow me to go back.
Okay.
But again, my last semester, I wound up getting in touch with him again with one of the guys. I ran into one of the guys that was in the house.
One of the gangs.
He was a gang member as well, and
Right.
he was still at the house.
Okay.
And he was part of the program now. I think he was the executive director by that time.
So you saw a big change in him.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely, yeah, that was great to see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
and-
what?
And he got me in touch with Dad again. And me and Dad, we started talking again. We started going to lunch. And I told him it was my last semester. And I lived in the Bronx at that time. I moved from Brooklyn to the Bronx for about 2 years. And I was coming back to Brooklyn, but I didn't have a place to go. Dad already retired from discipleship. He was working for a nursing home, Norwegian Christian home, right?
Yes.
And he had an apartment where he had an extra room. And interesting enough, I needed a place to stay. I wanted to finish school.
Right.
I didn't know what to do, and now I'm like kind of lost again. Cause now I'm alone again. All right, I have no partners with me anymore. So I'm a father, but I'm not with the women anymore. But I was kind of lost again while finishing my bachelor's.
Okay.
gets into my life at that moment, and it had to be God.
Oh, absolutely.
Gets into my life again and offered me a room after all these years. That tells me
Right.
unconditional love. That was God. That was God. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So all of a
absolutely,
sudden,
absolutely.
he has his open arms.
Yes.
Welcome home.
Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh.
And he offered me this room. I took it, finished my bachelor's,
Right.
and he said, "You know what? Why don't you keep on?" We talked about it. He said, "Why don't you keep on? Go for your master's." So I'm like, you know what? I will. So I wind up going to Long Island University, Brooklyn,
Right.
and I wound up getting my master's while living with Dad, and that was
So you got your
awesome for me.
master's.
So now I got
degree.
my master's.
Here's a guy off the streets,
Yeah.
gang member. Everything you see in the movies, you were that.
Absolutely.
And your life gets completely changed around, and you got your master's degree. And you owe it to
Yeah.
God.
I owe it to God.
Okay.
I owe it to God.
Now, God worked through this man.
That's right.
That's the key. God
Absolutely.
works through people.
Through Dad.
Okay. And he can work through you or anybody out there. You have no idea the impact that you could do for someone if you sincerely from your heart want to help the person like Doug has done for Tony. Okay, here's a man that went out there and yet over a decade later comes back to Doug and Doug says, hey, well, welcome home. Okay, and shows him unconditional love. I mean, you can't do that unless you have the Holy Spirit in you, ladies and gentlemen out there. You got to really start to think and take inventory of yourself right now and get things straight with our Creator. Listen, if He created you, wouldn't it be right to do what He wants you to do, okay, in this life now? That you could possibly do. I'm not saying you'd go because you were never called to minister a church. I couldn't hear a sermon from Doug every week. That's not your calling. His calling was to go and help people like Tony, and bring them out of what the gutters of life, okay, into someone that goes through school and goes through all the courses up to his master's and gets his master's. That's a beautiful thing. Now, you said something earlier, Doug. You said it's taken so long, so many years, and the toughest part of it was getting started. That's writing your book. It's called Being Dad. That is finished, but it hasn't come out yet. We're going to talk about that more on the third show, which will be coming down the road. But here it's Being Dad. That's the name of the book because everybody called him Dad, right, Tony?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And he said, if I didn't write this book, I would have died without anybody knowing the stories.
Yes.
Okay. And the reason why you say that is because in this book, 19 children wrote little bios of themselves. Can you tell us more about that?
My concern was that Tony would never tell his story.
Right.
And I knew his story and it would die with me. And that was true with a lot of others.
Right.
So I said, okay, I approached a number of people if they would contribute. And most everybody wanted to.
Right.
Some found that they really couldn't do it.
Why?
It was too emotional. They just couldn't do it. Others started writing and couldn't stop because it became so therapeutic. And then I had to edit it down to fit into the space.
Right.
But it was very therapeutic for most everybody because they were things that they brought out and looked at as adults that they had hidden away as children. And it was so much easier to look at it, but it was also very painful. A lot of forgiveness had to happen because of things that had happened to them as children.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with me. There would be parts I'd be writing, and it'd be funny. We got kicked out of the haunted house in
Great Adventure.
Great Adventure.
You got kicked out.
Got kicked out because my kids felt it wasn't all that haunted,
Right.
and so they could do a better job.
Yeah.
And when I came out, all my kids were gathered around by security guards, and they put us out the front gate and said, "Don't come back." But
They probably thought this is like Alice in Wonderland
so I got the-
compared to what their
I
real
got the-
life is.
And so many times I would get the giggles because I remember
Right.
it back.
Right.
But there are other times I would remember stories that would make me stop and cry. Just really put my head down and cry because they were such painful memories. But the overall part of it was that it was therapeutic.
Uh-huh.
And the stories are just raw
Right.
because they're their own emotions. Tony's story is part of that. It's just
I've read them. It's
it's
incredible.
It's real.
Right, it's real.
So the book is not a Pulitzer Prize winner for the writing, but it's masterful for the stories that they tell.
Right.
And I say it's a book of heroes, and one facilitator. But these guys and girls are real heroes in my book.
Absolutely.
And I got the blessing to be the facilitator of that heroism. But they are the heroes of the book.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but 19 stories are in this book also. I went through some of them. They're absolutely mind-boggling how God can change people, literally change people. Like they probably thought the haunted house was are we in Disneyland? Okay, because it shows you the terror they went through living this life in a gang and a gang leader, living this life, and in reality they came together because of Doug here and wrote short bios of what they were and what they went through and what this man has helped them do and who they are today. It is absolutely incredible. I recommend this. I mean, it's such a powerful testimony what you have, Doug, that writing this book, it had to be. It's inevitable. It had to be because there's going to be many people out there, or someone is going to just all of a sudden say, hey, listen, if God could do this for these guys, he could do it for me. And I guarantee you that 99.9% of the people that are watching the show did not have a life like Tony, okay? Did not see the hell on earth as Tony has done and seen. Right, Tony?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And yet, God has completely changed him around. Completely changed him around. He's an educated man today. It's a wonderful thing. I look at Doug, what his life has been over the years that I've known him for 50 years right now. And I see all the things that God has done and set him up all the way back to when getting the building for $20,000, which at that time was probably a lot of money. Okay, especially when you have 0 minus 0, you know. And God provided that. And he provided another room for Tony when he came back years after to go in. And here he is, welcoming him with open arms. Well, I'm telling you something. If you're out there, God right now is opening his arms and saying, welcome home. Okay, come back. I'll show you what unconditional love is, no matter what you did, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. Okay, you're getting unconditional love from our Savior up there right now and saying, come back. Come back if you're out there. If you're not right, we want to get things settled right now, okay? Because we're not talking about time here. We're talking about eternity. And we're not talking about, well, I'm not saying living a Christian life or godly life or whatever you want to call it is an easy life. It's not an easy life, but it's a better life. Right, Tony?
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's a rewarding life. And you'll have the peace that goes beyond all understanding. Okay, if you just allow God to do what he wants to do in your life, which is the best plan you could ever imagine. You cannot ever think of a plan better than what God already ordained for you to do in this. God bless you all.